Casual Sporting here. This should be my first video up, so I'm going to say a few things about myself. I am 18 years old. I'm going to Xavier University for sports management, and I made this channel because I love sports. One day I potentially will move to other sports, but for right now I'm going to be focused on baseball. Go on Twitter and follow at @casualsporting_ for future video updates and for news about my future Instagram account. Most World Series winning teams, especially in the 2010s on, have a certain formula in how their roster is constructed. Even teams before, like the Core 4 Yankees, have used this formula. In this video, I'm going to explain the big three aspects these teams had. Formula to winning. 1. A core that was developed internally, meaning through the farm system and trades of young players. The start of the Giants dynasty started off with the 2010 core. Former MVP Buster Posey, drafted. Matt Cain, drafted. Cy Young Award winner The Freak, drafted. Mad Bum, drafted. The Beard, drafted. And even Jonathan Sanchez was drafted. The 2011 Cardinals had a great core. Albert, the Machine, drafted. Yachty, drafted. Waino, he was traded to St. Louis at 21, but he missed the whole season. John Jay, drafted. Alan Craig, drafted. David Freese, World Series MVP, traded to St. Louis at 24. The 2012 Giants basically had the same core as 2010 minus Jonathan Sanchez, but they did have three big additions. Brandon Belt, who was drafted. Pablo Sandoval, the Panda, who was an international signing out of Venezuela, and Brandon Crawford, who was also drafted for the team. 2013 Red Sox were built on veterans that they acquired, and I'll get to them later, but the 2013 Red Sox did have a core that came from their farm system. Dustin Pedroia, The Laser Show, drafted. Jacoby Ellsbury, drafted. John Lester, drafted, along with Clay Buchholz, who was also drafted with the team. 2014 Giants, same as 10 and 12 minus a few people, plus Joe Panik, who came in and had a big impact. The 2015 Royals were mainly built off of this core. Eric Hosmer, drafted. Moose, Mike Moustakas, drafted. Locane was traded to KC from the Brewers at age 25. Gordo, drafted. Salvi Perez, international signing, and the late Yordan Ventura, international signing. The 2016 Cubs used a bad start to the decade to win their first championship in over 100 years. Chris Bryant, drafted. Wilson Contreras, international signing. Javi Baez, drafted. Kyle Schwarber, drafted. Anthony Rizzo, traded to Chicago at age 22. And Addison Russell, traded to Chicago at age 20, even though he didn't pan out. Just like the Cubs, the Astros had a dreadful start to the decade but turned it around by having Jose Altuve, international signing. Carlos Correa, drafted #1 overall. George Springer, drafted. Bregman, drafted. Dallas Keuchel, drafted. And Yuli Gurriel being an international signing out of Cuba. Their 2018 championship was different from their 2013 championship because they relied more on developing players. For example, Mookie Betts, drafted. Xander Bogaerts, drafted. Andrew Benintendi, drafted. JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr., drafted. Rafael Devers, international signing. And Eduardo Rodriguez, international signing. The Washington Nationals are another team that took the assets they got early in the decade and used it to win later in their decade. Anthony Rendon, drafted. Steven Strasburg, drafted #1 overall. Juan Soto, international signing. Trey Turner, traded to Washington at age 21. Victor Robles, international signing. And lastly, Mr. National, drafted in the early 2000s. This 2020 Dodgers team was different than other Dodgers teams that tried to make it to the World Series earlier in the decade. They really focused on homegrown players. Corey Seager, drafted. Clayton Kershaw, drafted. Cody Bellinger, drafted. Tony Gonsolin, drafted. Will Smith, drafted. Dustin May, drafted. Julio Urias, international signing. And Jock Peterson, drafted. Now let's go on to part 2, a savvy veteran pickup. This could be by waiver wire, a cheap free agent, or a simple trade. These veterans use their experience to teach their young core how to become a better team, but as well come in clutch when needed. The 2010 Giants had Aubrey Huff, who is 33 years old and signed a one-year, $3 million deal. In 2010, he batted .290, 26 home runs, and 86 RBIs, helping the Giants make it to the World Series for the first time since 2002 and winning it. The 2011 Cardinals have two savvy veterans, Chris Carpenter, who came to St. Louis at 30, but in 2011 was 36, and who was a two-time All-Star in St. Louis, and who was their ace when Adam Wainwright went down, and Lance Berkman, who came to St. Louis at age 35 via free agency and was an All-Star in 2011, helping them win the chip. The 2012 Giants had Melky Cabrera. You could also say Hunter Pence, but I'm going to use him for a next part of the formula. Melky Cabrera came via trade right before the 2012 season when they traded the 2010's core piece, Jonathan Sanchez, and another piece for Melky. Melky, his one and only All-Star Game appearance came in this 2012 season, where he did win All-Star Game MVP. Sadly, a month after he was tested positive for steroids and got a 50-game suspension and missed the whole 2012 playoffs, but his first half contribute was very important before they got Hunter Pence. Instead of the internal core, where they did have some, the 2013 Red Sox relied heavily on veterans to win this championship. Shane Victorino was one big pickup who had a clutch grand slam in Game 6 of the ALCS. Mike Napoli held it down playing DH or first base that year. Koji Uehara, who closed the World Series, and John Lackey, who pitched 2 games in the World Series and came out the bullpen 1 game. These 4 guys contributed huge. The 2012 Giants had Melky for one half, then Hunter for another half, but the 2014 Giants had Tim Hudson, who signed with the Giants at age 38, where he had a good season. He was an All-Star and pitched in every round, including 2 games in the World Series. 2015 Royals had 2 savvy veteran pickups, one being Kendrys Morales, who was a great DH bat for them and came up clutch with a huge home run during that postseason run, and Alex Rios, who played a serviceable outfield and played all 3 rounds. 2016 Cubs' 2 savvy veteran pickups played a huge role in breaking their curse. Dexter Fowler, who was younger but still in his early 30s, came up big with clutch home runs in the World Series and was even an All-Star that year. Then Ben Zobrist had the biggest hit in Cubs history, arguably, with the go-ahead hit in Game 7, who was also on the 2015 Royals, but 2 in 2016 Cubs was a big, savvy pickup. The 2017 Astros had Josh Reddick, who was 31 and batted .314 that season, and he started all 18 postseason games. The 2018 Red Sox had Steve Pearce, who ended up being their World Series MVP, who was traded from Toronto mid-season at age 35 and came up big all season long for the Sox. Nationals relied heavily on veterans to win their first championship in franchise history. Howie Kendrick, who came in 2017 in their pursuit for championship that year but fell short. Howie had some of the biggest hits in Nationals history, the Grand Slam in Game 5, becoming NLCS MVP against the Cardinals, and the Game 7 home run. Next is Asdrubal Cabrera, who got released by Texas earlier in that 2019 year. Asdrubal played 38 games with Washington, batting .323, and played all 7 games of the World Series at age 33. Next is Anibal Sanchez, who came to the Nats at age 35 after spending a year with the Braves. He pitched in the NLDS, NLCS, and World Series, with his best start coming in the NLCS when he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning in Game 1. The 2020 Dodgers had veterans such as Justin Turner, but he was there for a while. Their savvy pickup who came recently was Blake Treinen, who was 32 years old, pitched every round in the postseason, 11 games, and 11 in the 3rd innings pitched. The third formula to winning, and this could be considered the biggest one, is the big acquisition when the team is ready to win. This could mean a signing or a trade at the deadline, or even a big pickup that it took a couple years for them to win a championship with. The Giants, with their 3 championships, they didn't go out and get as big as names as other teams did throughout the decade. But you can go back and say Freddie Sanchez for the 2010 Giants was a big pickup. He was a 3-time All-Star, including 2009, before he got traded from the Pirates to the Giants. In 2010, he batted .292, a .320 batting average in the NLCS, and a .273 batting average in the World Series during their win. Next, the 2011 Cardinals had Matt Holliday, who they acquired from the Oakland Athletics in 2009. In his first full season in 2010, he had 74 extra base hits, an All-Star game appearance, and a Silver Slugger. And in 2011, the year they won, he was an All-Star and batted cleanup for the World Series team. Like I said about the 2010 Giants, the 2012 Giants didn't get a bigger name like other teams did, but they did get Hunter Pence, who helped them win the 2012 championship, but also came in very clutch during their run 2 years later in 2014. The 2013 Red Sox, however, are one team that didn't really acquire anybody big at the deadline or the season before. They already had their core of players and used many veterans to get to where they are. So they used part 1 and 2 of the formula very well, but didn't use 3. The 2014 Giants acquired Jake Peavy from Boston, where he won a championship with Boston the year before. Jake Peavy pitched 4 games in the postseason and helped them at the deadline when a lot of their pitchers were hurt. He stepped up and helped them win another championship in the decade. From the 2015 Royals and on, these teams made big splashes to go along with their young cores to win a championship. The 2015 Royals got Johnny Cueto from the Reds. Yes, he may have struggled in the regular season, but the postseason time came and he stepped up. In the World Series, in his one start, he threw a complete game shutout, 2 hits allowed. The 2016 Cubs had 2 big acquisitions. One, John Lester before the 2015 season, and Aroldis Chapman at the 16 deadline. Even though they didn't win the championship in 15, John Lester made that team improve a large amount as they lost in the NLCS to the Mets. The 2017 Astros pickup might have been later than the rest, but it sure made an impact. Justin Verlander was traded from the Tigers to the Astros in the famous Minute Maid trade on August 31st, 2017. He was the ace that they needed, and he won ALCS MVP that year and helped win the 2017 championship for the Astros. The 2018 Red Sox had their core such as Mookie, Xander Bogaerts, and co., but they had many big signings and trades. Traded for Chris Sale and gave up top prospects Juan Moncada and Michael Kopech, but it paid off with a championship. Also, right before their championship season, they signed JD Martinez to a free agent deal, and that worked out as he finished 4th in the MVP race that year, with the winner being his teammate, Mookie Betts. Those two were very huge, but those are not the only ones, as right before the 2016 season, they signed David Price and traded for Craig Kimbrel. They didn't win the championship in 16 and 17, but that is because the AL was very stacked during those years. The 2019 Nationals. Since they lost Bryce Harper to the Phillies, they went out and signed Patrick Corbin to a deal. This doesn't even include them signing Max Scherzer a couple years before. Max Scherzer played a big part in winning the World Series. Even Corbin did, as he pitched very important innings out the bullpen in Game 7 of the World Series. The 2020 Dodgers might have made the biggest move of them all, acquiring Mookie Betts from the Red Sox. In 2020, he finished 2nd in the MVP race, won the Gold Glove and the Silver Slugger, and had many clutch hits in the World Series to help the Dodgers win their first championship of the century. As you see, all these teams have players that fit these criteria that played a very important role in helping these teams win a World Series once again. Before you go, in the comments, let me know which 2021 team fits this criteria heading into the deadline. Also, like and subscribe to the channel, please. Peace.